boundary distortion is about knowing what is yours to carry versus carrying everything for everybody. I think a lot of us wind up in leadership by just being like, I'll just put it all on my back and I will carry us up the mountain. Hello and welcome to Inside Conscience-Driven Leadership. I'm your host, Hanna Miller, here with
Julie Euber, your co-host.
And we are super excited to talk to you about part 2 of our discussion on distortions. So we spent episode 3 talking about the first 3 distortions, which are urgency, threat, and narrative. And we're going to talk today about the last 2, which are boundary and approval distortions. Just to recap, distortions are once helpful impulses that no longer serve us. Ultimately, right? They're a way that our brains and our bodies are trying to protect us from experiences of our past that aren't serving us. So they feel like intuition because they are a somatic experience or something we feel in our body, but it's not that same deep pattern recognition of intuition that is saying go or stop. These are saying hurry. They're saying you're under attack. They're saying this story is true and you need to shut down all the options. And so ultimately they're a version of those protective fight, flight, freeze mechanisms. And the first 2 we talked about really covered that fight, flight, freeze thing. And then I don't know if everybody's familiar, I don't know if you know, Julie, about appease, the 4th one, also
Not a
called
lot.
fawn. Oh, this is a super exciting nervous system response. So appease or fawn is so if you like all the F's, it's fight, flight, freeze, fawn. If you like the rhyme, it's fight, flight, freeze, appease, but it's the same idea. So it's cool that we saved these 2 for a separate episode because boundary distortion and approval distortion are both versions of that appease reaction. Because they're about our relationship with people and they're about staying safe by staying close. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it. So let's start with approval distortion because I think a lot of us experience this at some point in our lives, or that we all have times that we struggle with it more.
Yeah.
So this is a really relational one, right? Like ultimately approval distortion is when we overweight the need for people to like us. And so we shift our behavior to keep in belonging, to keep safety because of our proximity to other people.
Yeah, I think this is one that's pretty common and one that's really hard to tease out because sometimes it feels like your job to be liked in order to get things moving in the right direction. And that can be difficult to get out of.
Yeah. I think especially for those of us conditioned female by the world, there is often some real consequences to being unliked. Like that's going to trigger a whole bunch of other things. So that feeling of being rejected, right? Like if you go back to our, days when we lived in villages and in tight-knit communities, being rejected by your people was life or death. So there's good reason for it from a evolutionary psychology perspective of if you are rejected by your people, you'll starve to death. You need community in order to survive. So, our lizard brains are, I know that's an evolving idea at the moment, but our historical idea of rejection is bad. And when we're young, being rejected is also something that is really dangerous. So I think for those of us that really felt like we needed to win approval from our parents, this can be a really huge one that's hard to realize and let go of.
Yeah, although I would say that I think conscience-driven leaders have a really great escape hatch for this because of that interest in impact and seeing the world that we know is better for everyone. We want that to exist. We want to see that. And when we put impact and, a better world first, it puts in perspective how much it matters or doesn't matter for someone to like you.
I do think we all come to that conclusion. Like that's probably something that is true for conscience-driven leaders. I was talking to Julie Sherrill, the other Julie who's helped frame and create conscience-driven leadership with us, and she definitely was, sharing that like you making it better for everybody does not mean everybody likes you. And that's something that I think I was really conscious of, and I think we talked about at some point, is that I think it's really important that conscience-driven leadership be clearly have teeth. Because we're building a system for people in service of people. That does not mean we bend over backwards for everybody. It's not for everybody. We're building a system for the people who wanna show up and do the work. We're not building a system that works for anybody who wants to hang around and do nothing.
Yeah, and I think that takes a lot of recognizing inequities too, and being intentional about creating a better world where those don't negatively impact people's lives. And sometimes people who have privilege don't love that either.
No, they're not famously the best at being bounded, like, having
Mhm.
boundaries applied to them or, yeah. So, I do think we find ourselves in situations where we realize that this is a distortion that we can't afford, right? We can't afford to appease everyone. But I do think there's always gonna be people who have power over us and people who are important to us and people who we have histories with, and all of those can still trigger this approval distortion where we are trying to preserve our belonging. On the other hand, I think boundary distortion is something that we are all way more susceptible to than most, because boundary distortion is about knowing what is yours to carry versus carrying everything for everybody. I think a lot of us wind up in leadership by just being like, "I'll just put it all on my back and I will carry us up the mountain."
Right.
And I think that one's easier to fall back into on a regular basis because we're trying to protect others from consequences.
Yes, it's not just, "I'm the only one that can do this." In fact, I think it's rarely that. It's not, "I'm the only one that can do it. This is my thing." It's, "Oh, man, I don't really love doing this, and I imagine other people won't enjoy doing it either, so I'm gonna save them from this." Or, "Who am I to put this on them when it's not an enjoyable task? I can hold that so they can hold something else that's really valuable." There it's figuring it is also very relational in an interesting way.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it's appeasing someone, it's helping, but it's helping by self-sacrifice, right? Like, boundary distortion is a way of sacrificing yourself to take care of other people, and especially in conscience-driven organizations or mission-driven organizations, the idea that a leader should lead with self-sacrifice is often really highly rewarded and expected. I was just talking to a new client that I'm working with yesterday about how I love to sweep the barn. When I was a kid, like, we sweep the barn, and it was my family's business. We worked on Christmas. We stayed late. We swept the barn. And that's great, and I am always happy to show that I'm willing to sweep the barn, but it is not the best use of anybody's time for me to sweep the barn every day,
Yeah.
right? Like, be willing to do it. If you're by the trash can and it's full, by all means, grab it, but don't stay late every day emptying the trash can. That's not actually helping.
It's performative and oftentimes, nothing that is actually helping people. It's helping you feel like a certain kind of leader, maybe, but it's not actually productive.
I think for conscience-driven leaders, we get a little tired of it, though. Like, I think we might even get, like, resentment around it. Like, why am I always the one who's carrying everything?
Yeah, I also think that, at least for me, and I'm curious if this connects with CDL, at some point I'm like, well, I'm doing this because I think it's a task other people shouldn't have to do, but I also have a lot of respect for people who do that job.
Yes.
So, who am I to say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this because it's not a task that we value or, that is a high level task." But I have so much respect for people that do it. So, why am I acting like this is a bad thing to do?
You pinged something for me
Hmm.
that is, I think, really important. It's a really hard thing that we do. So, when we're trying to protect someone from something, and boundary distortion is ultimately a protective impulse, we often protect people from things unfairly. And when we protect someone from something that we've decided they can't handle, shouldn't have to deal with, is burdensome, whatever, when we take that on for them, we that's totally a boundary distortion. We say, I'm going to hold this and I'm either not going to tell them about it or I'm going to just do it for them, whatever. That's actually tremendously unfair. Like, that is taking consent and agency away from people. It is not building them up. We think we're doing it from a place of generosity or kindness, but we're actually robbing them of something very important.
I agree with that. I think that's a really important thing to remember and to be thoughtful about. I also think another thing that gets us into trouble with this is just liking things, liking to do things like, "Ooh, I get to do this? Great." Like, I love doing things, and then, collecting all of these things we like and like to do, and these hats we like to wear until we realize our closet is full and bursting and we can't close the door. So some of that I think is trying to shore up what our bandwidth is with the number of projects we would love to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, is there a sixth distortion, the magpie distortion? Ooh, shiny.
Me, that's me.
Me, me. Pick me, pick me. And I'll do this thing and this thing and this thing with all of my free time. I think that can be a version of boundary distortion. Um, but yeah, I think there are. I mean, you're kind of leading us toward in the direction of in our last episode we mentioned pivotry is one of the skills. You're talking about the other really. There's 4 kind of skill groups in conscience driven leadership, and I think you're talking about sovereignty. There where we have to be conscious, not conscience. We have to be conscious of how we're taking care of ourselves. And that includes managing our bandwidth. And that's something that we call self-care, and that's a bunch of crap, right? It's not self-care to prioritize your bandwidth. It's strategically and operationally necessary to protect your bandwidth.
And it's not just lighting a candle and sitting in a bath. It's doing something that intentionally makes your life higher quality within your best of your ability.
Yeah. And that includes cleaning out the closet of
Yeah.
shiny things you wish you could do and letting other people do them and giving them the agency and opportunity to do these cool things that are fun, like, because you like them. Other people probably like them too.
But Hannah, I love my trinkets.
But you love my trinkets. You should see my desk. It's so full of trinkets. So full. Um, because I just tongue twisted on this, and it's something that I know we wanted to talk about at some point. I think we have a few minutes right now. Let's talk about the difference between conscience and conscious. Because conscious leadership is a thing. There's like a whole institute about it, like, right? You can read about conscious leadership, but it's different than conscience driven leadership.
How so?
Consciousness is a lot what we've been talking about, right? Like awareness of distortion, creating that space between reaction and response. That's what consciousness is about. Consciousness is an awareness of what's happening, right? Like you are conscious or you are unconscious. That is like awake or not awake, right? Like you are aware of your surroundings or you're unaware of your surroundings. And so I think it's really useful as a leadership skill for many people to develop consciousness about their leadership. But I don't think conscience-driven leaders tend to struggle with that very much.
From my understanding, the conscious driven also includes a level of self awareness too. And I think that there's a little bit of that in both of those models. But I do think that CDL leaders, if anything, are often painfully self aware.
Yeah, I think we come into the world. We certainly come into leadership with a high degree of self-awareness because we're looking around going like, crap, does it have to be me? I guess it does. So we have that just awareness of what we're taking on, that awareness that we're here to serve other people, that awareness of other people. So yeah, when we're talking about conscious leadership, that's about improving your skill at consciousness in your leadership, because I think a lot of people wind up in leadership because it's the next thing because because their ambition is career focused and they just keep climbing the ladder because they have the education or they're high performers or whatever. They wind up in leadership and they have no idea what to do. I work with these people all the time who like got promoted because they were great individual contributors and now they manage people and they have no idea what to do. How do you motivate a person? How do you like they're self-motivated? Why am I babysitting other people? Like they have all these stories about why people the idea of management, they never needed management. So making them managers is actually this really tremendously unfair thing to do. But right, that's the only way we know how to promote people is to give them supervisory responsibility. And so I think conscious leadership is probably really beneficial for folks who wind up in leadership through that path. But conscience-driven leadership winds up in leadership because you take on responsibility for other people's ability to be successful.
I think that there's an interesting play between management and mentorship in that space too, that I wonder if CDL leaders lean more towards the mentorship side. I do think they're different, but as far as helping uh, support others and help them grow in the ways that they want to grow or that the potential that they see, I think that there's a little bit of a bend towards mentorship there.
I think there is an inclination toward mentorship, and I think it can be problematic because, like high performers who have never needed management, I think conscience-driven leaders tend to be that kind of person to some degree as well. We take a lot of responsibility. We prefer to work with people who we want to mentor and who want to be mentored because they share something that we see and we can cultivate. But managing is what you do to ensure alignment. Managing is about accountability and making sure people are aware what the goal is, are aware when they stray from the goal, and are communicated with super clearly. So I think they're unrelated, but I think it's easy to be like, "Oh, no, I'm more a mentorship leader," or like, I'm gonna take everybody under my wing." I'm sorry, everybody can't be under your wing. Your wings aren't big enough. And B, not everybody wants to be there. People who don't wanna be under your wing need management. It's really important. It's the only way they'll be successful, and if they're not gonna be successful, they should be informed early and often that they are not in alignment so that they can self-select and make a choice to find an environment where they can thrive. Because not everybody thrives in a conscience-driven culture. It's not for everyone. It's for conscience-driven people. And that's, I think, why this model is so important is because there are people who are driven by conscience. There are people who operate in the world this way. And we do incredible work that is often exhausting, overwhelming, and just a grind because if we don't have the support, if we don't have other conscience-driven leaders that we're connected to, we feel like we're just insane and making it up. It's we kinda feel gaslit all the time, right? Like, you feel like you're upside down you're right side up in an upside down world where why doesn't everybody see what could be? Why is everybody so obsessed with all these things that are actually standing in our way? Um, so yeah, I think management and what I call trust physics is so important because building trust with someone you can mentor is easy. You're alike. You have things that in common that that create energy and make it easy. Managing people who you don't have alignment with and building trust with them, that matters. It matters to everybody. It matters to the people you're mentoring. It matters to people that you're not mentoring. It matters to you.
Build and maintain.
Build and maintain is true, yes.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. That's a great point that mentorship and management are just one coin, two different sides. They are different
Mhm.
things.
Yep.
Although I'll say that I have the most fun as a manager when I also get to step out and be a mentor within that relationship too. But you're right, that's not always going to be the best model for everyone. But I know that I am strong in that way. But you're right, you can't throw away the manager side of things because if you don't have accountability, you're not going to move towards that brighter world that you see and want for everyone.
And you're gonna miss people who you could mentor because they need help getting close enough to see to connect. on that, right? Like the connection doesn't always happen. Like they might not know this about themselves. So I agree. Management and mentorship are different, and conscience-driven leaders really prefer to manage people they also mentor. And I think we do better work. And it's, a conscience-driven team is an amazing thing to be a part of. But it takes time to build. And trust physics is how we build it.
Just like leadership and I'll say followship, I don't think that you're one or the other. Uh, as far as mentor and mentee, we tend to think of those things as very hierarchical, but I actually think instead they're things we move between. And we need that kind of flexibility in order to do the kind of complex work we often want to do.
Absolutely. All righty. We could talk for ages. I am so excited that we're doing this podcast because it means I get to hang out with you all the time. So yeah, super. This was a really fun discussion about distortions. If you have questions that you want to ask us for the second season, please email us at podcast@conscience-drivenleadership.com. And that's our second season is totally just going to be responding to the questions from the first season. So I can't wait to hear what you email us. We also love to hear your insights and ahas because we're nerds and we think this is fun. So please reach out. And thank you for listening. And I'm Hanna Miller.
I'm Julie Euber. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.